Good morning, Hugh. Good to be on with you.
Now, the morning after the leak of the Supreme Court draft opinion in Dobbs, you said on this show that the court ought to move to issue a judgment, opinions to follow in order to minimize threats to the justices. They did not do that. First, your reaction to the attempted assassination of Justice Kavanaugh, and then do you still believe, as I do, that they ought to issue a judgment, opinions to follow immediately?
Hugh, it was a truly shocking moment in American history when a Democratic hitman was narrowly deterred from murdering Justice Kavanaugh, and presumably his wife and daughters as well. This is someone who was probably aware of what Chuck Schumer had said just a couple years ago on the steps of the Supreme Court, Hugh, when he specifically threatened Brett Kavanaugh by name, saying that he had reaped the whirlwind and he wouldn't know what hit him. He was going to pay the price. This also happens after you've had left-wing street militias protesting outside of Justice Kavanaugh's home and other justices' home in direct and explicit violation of federal law. Yet the hapless partisan hack, Merrick Garland, refuses to enforce federal law. In fact, they did it again last night, Hugh, on the very same day that a Democratic hitman tried to murder Brett Kavanaugh. You had another left-wing street militia announce in advance on the internet that they were going to violate federal law. Yet not a single one was arrested. Merrick Garland should resign in disgrace. And if he won't resign in disgrace, he should be impeached in January for his dereliction of duty. And this is also at a time when Nancy Pelosi refuses to pass a bill or even have a vote on the bill that passed the Supreme Court or passed the Senate unanimously last month, Hugh, to provide enhanced security, not just for the justices, but for their families. Hugh, what would have happened if that Democratic hitman had shown up in 1 o'clock in the afternoon as opposed to 1 o'clock in the morning when Justice Kavanaugh wasn't at home and therefore there were not police present at his home? It's disgraceful that Nancy Pelosi refuses to even have a vote on this Supreme Court security bill that passed unanimously last month. And then finally, the point you raised, Hugh, yes, I believe the Supreme Court needs to issue the opinion in the Dobbs case now. However they rule, whatever the breakdown of the justices' opinions are, they need to issue those opinions or at least the judgment now before some other lunatic Democratic hitman thinks that he can change the court's decision and the course of history by assassinating a Supreme Court justice.
Now, Tom Cotton, the fact that it was foreseeable, indeed beyond foreseeable, it was predicted that violence would be incentivized by that leak, means that the leaker is the proximate cause of the attempted murder, as he's been charged with the attempted murder of a Supreme Court justice under federal law last night. The FBI read the FBI affidavit. This is not a threat. It's an attempted murder. So the proximate cause was the leak. Ought the leaker to face civil liability for the intentional infliction of emotional distress on every one of these threatened people?
That seems to me a compelling case of civil liability for that leaker once his identity is known. Hugh, I'm not sure that he shouldn't face criminal liability. And while Merrick Garland's politicized Department of Justice may do that, I'm pretty confident the statute of limitations for such crimes runs well past the 2024 election. And if the FBI and the Department of Justice is not able to turn it up now because they're not focused on that, as opposed to, say, I don't know, persecuting parents at school boards as domestic terrorists, then I'm confident the next Republican administration will get to the bottom of it and hold those accountable who deserve to be held to account.
You know, Senator, I got to ask you about Peter Navarro. Now, Peter and I have been clashing for 25 years. All right. We are not buddies, though we have known each other for a long time. We've usually been yelling at each other when we've been together. And I mean that seriously. Nevertheless, the amount of resources necessary to arrest him and take him in leg irons to court is a disposition of Department of Justice assets, which clearly were needed elsewhere this week. Do you agree with that?
I agree with you. Putting aside whatever you think of Peter Navarro or Peter Navarro's politics or his views on trade policy or his service in the Trump administration, it's all beside the point. Peter Navarro was treated like a Mexican drug cartel leader when he's accused of defying a subpoena from an illegitimate House committee. Was Michael Sussman, the Hillary Clinton campaign lawyer, who lied to the FBI to try to sick the FBI on the Trump campaign arrested in handcuffs and in leg irons? I don't think he was. What about any of the other Democrats who are ever arrested for crimes? This is seems to me a clear example, once again, of the Garland Department of Justice targeting and persecuting its political opponents.
Now, hapless and feckless are good terms for the Attorney General. And I do agree with you. He's just clearly not up to the job. And I used to say that about Jeff Sessions. So when you're not up to the job, and I worked for two fine Attorney Generals, Bill Smith and Ed Meese. They were both up to the job. Eric Holder was cited for contempt. He was never arrested. I've never heard of anyone being arrested for citation of a contempt for a legitimate committee, much less this rump committee that is illegitimate in everything that it does. It's just completely illegitimate because the majority denied the minority its traditional rights, first time in the history of the House. Are you going to even watch tonight? I was just talking to Brett Baer about coverage on Fox Business tonight, and they're going to cover it because I imagine there are 5 people in America who want to watch it. But are you going to watch it?
Am I going to watch the illegitimate partisan witch hunt on TV tonight, Hugh?
Yeah, that one.
No, the Yankton Twins have a game tonight, so I'll be tuning into that before I tune into the Red Sox and the Angels out west.
Senator, the A's are playing the Guardians tonight, who are now 25-25 and 1 game back of the Twins in the loss column. So I'd suggest your MLB is better spent there. Let's go back to the issuing of the opinion. There are 29 opinions left. The would-be assassin cited not only Dobbs, but the New York Gun Club case, which tells me he is a literate user of the internet, meaning that his internet social media history will be available and the timing of it will be available. Will the Judiciary Committee demand those records? Because it seems to me proximate cause is going to be proven up by which websites he got the geodata to target the justice and where he learned about the New York Gun Club case from. This is not a dummy. This is not an irrational mental case. This is a cold-blooded assassin.
Yeah, well, Hugh, I'm skeptical that Dick Durbin's Judiciary Committee will be doing so, but I'm pretty confident that Chuck Grassley's Judiciary Committee in January will do so. Again, this is a truly shocking moment in American history when a Democratic hitman tried to assassinate a Supreme Court justice to influence the outcome of a case after a draft opinion in that case was leaked specifically to create the kinds of pressure and threats we have seen with left-wing street militias protesting in violation of federal law outside of justices' homes, and now a hitman traveling across the country with kidnapping materials and firearms arrested outside of the justice's home, confessing to his intent to kill them specifically because of that case.
Let me ask you, do you suspect he violated gun laws along the way?
I don't know enough about the facts of how he obtained his firearm or how he traveled with that firearm, Hugh. That's possible. It wouldn't surprise me. And it wouldn't surprise me that he's not charged with gun crimes because this Department of Justice refuses to charge serious and repeat felons with gun offenses at anything like the rate it should be because it undermines their own ideological goals of releasing as many people from prison as possible and not sending them to prison in the first place. But Hugh, the guy showed up in tactical gear with zip ties and flex cups and duct tape and a crowbar. He wasn't going there to do a construction project.
And a Glock.
He was going there to take hostage and assassinate a Supreme Court justice and presumably his wife and his daughters as well. And Chuck Schumer can't even acknowledge it when he was the one who went out to the Supreme Court steps and personally threatened Brett Kavanaugh by name. You know, the Democrats are always saying that, Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham are responsible for this or that crime because they think we have too much illegal immigration. Chuck Schumer specifically threatened Brett Kavanaugh by name. Yet, as far as I know, he hasn't even mentioned it. Where are the Democratic senators and congressmen who are denouncing this effort by a Democratic hitman to assassinate a Supreme Court justice? For that matter, where are the mainstream media? This story is probably on A27 in the New York Times.
It's astonishing. It's very hard to find.
Every morning newsletter buried it under their obsessive hyperventilating about this illegitimate partisan witch hunt hearing we're going to have tonight.
Now, but Senator,
imagine though, Hugh, imagine if it had been a conservative a conservative who is obsessed about an opinion by, say, Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she was still alive, and showed up at her home with a gun and all that equipment, do you think that would be running an 827 of the New York Times? Or do you think it would be a 5-alarm fire on MSNBC and CNN and a better banner headline at the New York Times?
The attempt to assassinate any justice at any time is a banner headline on every platform. My last question, Senator. In terms of Jimmy Kimmel and the president, I don't know when that was taped. I believe it was taped after the assassination attempt. The assassination attempt did not come up, as far as I know. What does that tell you about that, quote, appearance by the president?
Well, Hugh, I'll confess that once again, I was watching Sox Angels, so I did not see Jimmy Kimmel, which is my ordinary viewing patterns at night, not to watch the evening comedy shows. But again, the fact that if it was taped after this was known, and this was known pretty early in the morning yesterday, Hugh,
10:20 a.m. Eastern.
It goes to show that the mainstream media and the cultural left in America is trying to bury a highly inconvenient story, which is a Democratic hitman tried to assassinate a Republican-appointed Supreme Court justice to change the outcome in a case that they don't like. This is just one more example of how the Democrats are projecting when they say that, oh, Republicans and conservatives are undermining democracy or there's rising authoritarianism, when it's the Democrats who are willing to threaten justices by name, inspiring Democratic hitman to show up. There was a Democratic congressman just last week or earlier this week who said in congressional committee that they will eliminate the filibuster and they will pack the Supreme Court if that's what it takes to confiscate the firearms of law-abiding American citizens. These Democrats are true radicals. They are the ones that are threatening democratic principles in this country, and the American people are going to eject them from office this fall.
On that prediction, you're not going to get any odds from me because it's a mortal lock. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you. I appreciate your taking the time to spend with me this morning.